Of course, we are live right now, and let's take it.
The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. It looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better... Tia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience, Monday, September 25th, 2023. Guys, it's been a while since we've been on the air, but we're back. It's been a couple weeks. We've got a lot going on. We've been from here to West Virginia and back. We've been to the Mothman Festival. Some of us were abducted and impersonated by the Men in Black. What an exciting weekend, a couple weeks we've had just being with our friends out in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Vance, Bake, it was good to be with you guys. Henry, Matt, you were missed. And, of course, our special guest tonight,
Yeah, absolutely.
Jay Michael. We'll get him in here in just a second. But, guys, just some quick thoughts on Mothman. I'd love to hear what you were thinking.
I had an amazing time for a plethora of different reasons. However, it was my first time to go to the TNT area, and I just absorbed everything. And I don't know, I just became part of the environment there to understand what happened back in 1967 out of that area. So it was a privilege, and to hang out with you guys and have breakfast, that was just the cap and the icing on the cake. It was great.
Yeah, we only got one meal together. We were there for the whole weekend. We had some island noodles. Great,
it was the Last Supper.
Vendor, by the way. The island noodles were fantastic.
Yeah.
But it was a good time. The weather was perfect. Aside from Sunday morning, the weather was perfect for the entire weekend.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
so
bad at all.
glad it didn't rain during the hayride.
Yeah, so are we, because we were out there on foot heckling the hayride goers as the Men in Black. It was a lot of fun. We really did have a lot of fun. By the way, guys, that was 6 to 8 hayrides an hour for 6 hours. We were original material, all improv. Kudos to Bake and Jeff Thomas and myself. I'm giving myself a pat on the back for that. It's hard enough doing that in real suits, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And I wore dress shoes. I really committed to the part.
No, this was completely authentic. It was very authentic. It was
yes, Jay,
cool.
I wore actual dress shoes. And I guess sometimes I forget I'm a sizable fellow because I did manage to jump on one of the trailers and heckle the goers. And then as I got up there, I'm like, well, shit, at some point I have to get down. And this isn't going to stop. So To quote John Panette, gravity's a law I should obey. I learned the hard way. I did dismount, but I did do a little LCL damage, but that's okay. No one was hurt seismically or physically. Point Pleasant was not a victim of my calamity, but it was a great weekend. But Baker, any take? Go ahead, Jay.
They're probably casting your footprints where you jumped right now, wondering what was so heavy that made this.
Wow, they're going to be more circular than footprint shaped. Is my.
Oh man!
Seriously, Bill Rigby. Hi, Bill. Go ahead, Big.
Hi, Bill. I really enjoy the festival every year because it's the one festival that I go to that there are no real experts compared to like maybe Walmsley and a few other ones, but they're not. It's not like when you go to some of these like Bigfoot festivals. There's always like I've got better evidence or I've got whatever. Like the Mothman is just a mixture of all kinds of weirdness, and everybody's just like waiting in line for noodles, and everybody's happy.
I get it.
There's no, even the speakers aren't like trying to work, like they're like, hey, this is what we know about this, or they'll talk about stuff. And I always love that the Star Wars crowd is there, and the Ghostbusters are there. Mountain Monsters was there. I so miss Trapper.
And Moth Boys, right?
Moth Boys were there. I can't remember his name, but he's the guy who always dresses like he's a forest ranger.
There's the train.
I hear the train.
Okay, I'm going to go on mute because, train.
I hear the train coming.
That's okay. It only goes through his laundry room. It's not a big deal.
No. Did we mute everybody or just him?
No, I don't think so. But Henry, you were missed at Mothman. That would have been a complete puzzle piece to have had you there too. But it'll happen one day. I know it will.
Yeah, hopefully. Cross my fingers.
Yeah, cross both fingers. Why not? Anyway, wow, what a gap. What happened here? There's a gap. There's a huge gap. But nonetheless, to wrap up, the whole Mothman thing, it was a privilege to hang out with a plethora of friends there that are researchers. And they dive into all the aspects of the cryptid world, not just Bigfoot, but they do dive into all of it. And they have a very intellect opinion on everything that's about all these subjects altogether. And that's one thing about Mothman. It's just not focused solely on Mothman. It's all the cryptids that are within the region that are focused on. So you have people from all different genres, and it's kind of turning into a little bit more of a cosplay festival, but I think at heart it's still the Mothman Festival. So I would try to wrap it up at that, and we'll get into our whole Bigfoot thing because after all, that's why we're here. We're talking about the 18-inch footprints that are found and the research that continues. And, if anybody wants to add to that, please jump in at any moment and tell us what has been discovered within recent days.
Well, I was going to say probably one of the biggest things that came up since the last time we met was the discovery of the mine at Ape Canyon.
Ooh.
Yes. So I heard, I think Cliff Brockman was down there. There was a few others. I guess they're actually descendants of the miners that had the cabin at Ape Canyon. and it was, I believe, a great grandson had actually, went down and actually discovered where the mine was. Henry, do
No
you know anything
kidding.
more about that, or?
What? Wow.
Well, I know that Mark Marcel has been diligently researching the Ape Canyon story and where the location of the cabin was. And he's pretty sure he found it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's an amazing story. If you read his little booklet about Ape Canyon, it's really well written, really well done.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, they were saying that there's possibly in this mine shaft, which is a little dangerous to get to, and to go inside. Just getting there in itself is life threatening. But once you do get inside, that there are supposed to be actually tools that the miners left behind on their way up, and so that would definitely be interesting for people to check out. So that was definitely big news over the last couple of weeks since we've been on.
Oh, well, I would say not only big news, but that's huge news.
Absolutely.
Because that puts nails into the coffin of the entire story.
Yes.
Wow. Because without that discovery of the mine, because that's why they were there. Wow, I haven't heard this until now. So now I'm completely enthralled in that whole thing. Oh, holy cow. Wow. I can't even form words right now. That's great.
Yeah.
After they were throwing the rocks, the Sasquatch, onto the cabin, they abandoned and left it, right? The
yes.
dig and everything.
Oh, yes.
So any tools left in there were literally the tools they were using that day.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I know that they did find the campsite itself. That was a couple years ago, but they're still in the process. They have original beams from the cabin itself. They have, but I guess there's so much debris because it's so close to Mount St. Helens.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been debris that's really changed that landscape over the last 40 years since that occurred. Since the Mount St. Helens occurred, but there's still the possibility, absolutely, that they'll find a lot of relics in there. And again, they're stuff like that back in that day. That was not cheap for those guys to. It's not like they had Walmart and they can run down and get picks and shovels.
Right.
They put their life savings into finding, getting these materials to go out there. So it's for them to leave that there. It really adds credence to the legend.
And you mentioned Mount St. Helens. When it blew, it sort of destroyed that whole area, right?
Absolutely.
Get into it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So, well, listen. While Sean's there. All right. So,
hi, Sean.
I was going to say, Jay.
I was enjoying.
Thanks, Jay. If you can introduce yourself to the, to people in the audience that may not, know
who you are.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. I'm J. Michael Long, and the J is not Jay, it's J period. And I became a documentary filmmaker in 2008. I've got about 50 to 75 titles out right now. Most of them are on UFOs and aliens and ancient aliens and conspiracy theories, things like that, because my executive producer, that's what he tends to hand me to do. I've done a couple of Bigfoot things. I started in getting interested in all of this in '73 when two guys from Pascagoula were abducted, and I saw a UFO that same night. And I've always been interested in UFOs and things of that nature. And then, of course, like most of us, in 1973, I went to the theater to watch a little movie called The Legend of Boggy Creek.
There you go. Right?
Scared the
So did I.
crap out of me. I wouldn't go in the woods for a year after watching that movie because I was like terrified there was a fog monster in there or something. And I loved the movie and been interested in Sasquatch since then. Around 1998, I produced a CD-ROM on, let's see, I did one on the ISS, but I also did one that had to do with like UFOs, space stuff, and all like that. And I figured, well, I'm going to throw a section in on Sasquatch also. And I put it in there, and I had to do some research to do that. And, got to thinking about the movie in 73 and some weird things that had happened to me. And I decided that, well, I'm really wanting to explore this Bigfoot thing. So I started going to meetings of the GCBRO and got invited to go to a couple of picnic things that they would have out in Monster Central. And really fascinated by the whole thing. I've had one encounter myself that I'm convinced it was a southern Sasquatch, and then another one that I really don't know what I was seeing. But the one that I saw that in Louisiana ran across a little cut through road, going back to like rounding in the woods, rounding with the edge of a cornfield and getting deeper and deeper down into Monster Central. And I saw it run across the road. I didn't tell anybody what I saw because it didn't fit what I was hearing from people about this creature. I had seen an image of, as Bill Asmussen had drawn it, of a Sasquatch on all four, and it was basically bent at the waist, long legs, long arms, and it was walking almost like a dog would walk or something like that. But what I saw was very, very flat to the ground and ran across that cut through. And I thought, I wasn't sure what I saw. And so I didn't tell anybody because I was like, that doesn't fit what we're supposed to be out here looking for. We're supposed to be looking for Bigfoot, the cross-country skiing Sasquatch. And this thing, the way that it moved across the ground was impossible for me to figure out how it was doing it. And if you want me to, I'll go into that. But anyway, I'd seen that. Do. I saw a down around South Mississippi. I lived in Mississippi at the time. And around the Beaumont area and in DeSoto National Forest, there was a group of us that gathered, sometimes 30, 40, 50 people. And this is before all the TV shows and stuff. We were just kind of as a community down there. People were coming together to listen into the woods because people were reporting seeing them and hearing them howl. And so we would all just it started as just a few people and it grew to like 30, 40 folks. But I had got there early one day and had a digital camera in my hand. This is important. And I got out of the car and I stood beside my car looking into the woods. Understand that, I'll visually show this. DeSoto National Forest was on this side of the road, and Camp Shelby is on the other side of the road. So this old road running down through the woods. You turn around, you look one way, you're looking at DeSoto National Forest. You turn around, you look the other way, you're looking into Camp Shelby. So I was standing there, and when I got out of the car, I'm looking into the area towards Camp Shelby in the forest there, and there's kind of an opening there, but there was something with like a head and shoulders. And my mind immediately, I'm kind of a skeptic myself, but my mind immediately said pareidolia. You're just seeing a collection of leaves and shadows and all that kind of looks like a head and shoulders. And I was actually just kind of laughing to myself about, gee, that looks like there's a Bigfoot there, but I didn't think it actually was. So I turned around, I turned to the right, I turned behind me, and I turned back, and I turned to face towards the base, and it was gone. The shape was gone. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's just a collection of shadows and things like that. So I'm like shifting over here, trying to get it to sort of reform that pareidolia, and it didn't do it. And I walked around the car directly in front of it and walked straight into the woods to stand where whatever it was standing. And it was actually a kind of a clearing, a hollowed out area there in the woods. And the ground was depressed, the straw on the ground. There was no footprints, but you could just see where something heavy had stood there. And I was like, wow, maybe there really was something here or somebody here. And so I turned around and I looked to see what my car would look like from its vantage point, and you could clearly see me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking at my digital camera. If I had just thought to take a picture of it, then I could take another picture when it wasn't there, and I could compare the two. But I didn't do it. I had the camera in my hand. I didn't take a picture.
I wish I could say that was an uncommon event. That's more common than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what's more. You don't. What's more amazing to me, Jay, is that in your mind, the first thing that comes to mind, and I'm just seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
This is a mirage. I don't know if you had that sighting today, as experienced as you are now with all this, would you have the same thought process, or would you be?
Maybe, but at the time, I mean, I should have took a picture. I wish I had, but I guess it's my own skeptical mind. You know, always look for a plausible reason first, and then whatever's left over, that's got to be what it is. And so anyhow, I walked out of the woods, and one of the first of the people to showed up, and I told him what I had seen. I said, don't report it as a Bigfoot sighting because I don't know what I saw. And I started thinking about it. I'm facing the area of Camp Shelby, DeSoto National Forest behind me. And my skeptical mind searching for something that might explain what I saw. I thought, well, what if it was a guy in a ghillie suit? And he's a sniper and he's training at Camp Shelby, the base. And he had come to literally the very edge of the base, so it'd be harder for someone to find him. I pull up in a car, get out, and start looking at him. And I wonder if he thought maybe I've been spotted. They found me. But I never said anything, never did anything. I just looked in that area, and then I started looking around the other ways. And maybe he left. So in my, trying to think of something that might explain it, I thought, well, it could have been a guy in a ghillie suit. So to this day, I don't say it was a Bigfoot. I don't know what it was. All I know is that I saw this shape in the woods that within 30 seconds of being able to turn around, it was gone. And so that's that one. But now the one that I saw in Louisiana, I'm now convinced that that's what that was. That was a Sasquatch, and it was very low to the ground, and it ran across a cut through. It was there. Rick,
Jay,
yeah.
I was going to say, going back to the Louisiana encounter, could you tell us like a little more detail, like what time of year it happened? Was it at night? And particularly with how it crossed the road, you said it went flat.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of questions I may have about that.
Okay. We were in the back of a pickup truck. It was me and Rick Tullis. I never even told this to Rick Tullis, but I was talking to him. We're sitting on the tailgate, and the truck's going down through the woods, and we were making a turn to go like deeper into the woods. We're sitting there, we're talking to each other, and I looked over his shoulder as he was talking, and this thing ran, if you can imagine, straight this way. It was kind of this angle. It ran across the road at an angle. To describe it, this is something I have played over and over in my mind trying to understand. It was very flat to the ground. Like its belly couldn't have been more than an inch or two off the ground. It put its feet forward, and it would put its hands down and pull like that. Now, its back legs were not up in any way. The knees were bent, and the feet were flat on the ground. Now, this thing is squatted all the way down to the ground, and its feet are flat on the ground. Paws were flat, and it pulled itself and then was kind of pushing with the back legs. Now, the thing about that is, if you look at your foot or your hand, you cannot bend the top of your hand and touch.
Right.
You can't do that. Humans cannot do this. You can't do it with your foot either. This thing did. This thing, when it put its back legs down and bent forward, the top of the the toes and the top of the foot touched the bottom of the shin or the knee, and it pushed that way. The hands did the same thing. When it came back this far, its hands were always flat on the ground, and it scooted very quickly across that cut through area and into the woods.
That's creepy as hell.
I know. Human beings cannot do that, and
No.
can't do that I know of.
Sean, have we not heard of the fact of these things do what we quote the spider crawl?
Yeah, the reports of the spider crawl, few and far between, but have been reported in a very similar movement that you're talking about, Jay. Matt, I think that's probably, if I knew where you were going, probably along the lines of questions you were going to ask next.
Yeah.
Because of that. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead, ask the question.
Well, the one thing is when you said that the hands and the feet had that ability to go all the way back. Was it splayed out? In other words, were the feet and the hands very far out from the body, or was it close to the body?
Very tight against the body when it did it.
Okay.
So when it was there,
yeah,
moving like this, the back was perfectly flat.
Okay.
The head was rounded, but it's like that, because the head is up. Rounded, no snout, rounded like head, flat back, no tail. I was
my
God,
that's creepy.
Was it a panther? No, it wasn't a panther.
Jesus.
And it ran like, it was like poop, 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 going across the thing. It was either wet or oily skin because there was a full moon that night and it glistened as it ran across there. You could just see the light reflecting off of it. That it was like jet black, but had a glisten to it. And it was enough light that I could see what its feet and all were doing. And it darted very quickly when it went across there.
Was there anything else you said about the head being more of like a round shape, no snout? Did you get to see the face?
No, because it was at a slight angle, but I didn't get to look like directly into the face.
Yeah.
And I think as I recall it, its face kind of wobbled a little too as it was going.
Okay.
And I didn't get a clear look, but I did note that there was no snout.
Okay.
And it was a roundish head rather than like, a panther or something would have ears. But there was no visible ears that I could see.
How about size? Do you think that this was something that was 6 or 7 feet tall, bigger, smaller?
I think that if it stood up, it was at least 6 foot tall.
Okay. Oh man,
it was big. I mean, it was broad, it was broad shoulders, but it kept like this, as it was running.
Yeah,
interesting.
Wow. And small back. You can tell the back was small, but the chest obviously must have been bigger. But again, it's down like this. If it had stood up, it probably would have looked bigger and wider and even scarier, but it was down like that. And I didn't say anything about it. I didn't talk about it with anybody. I thought, well, I don't know what you saw, but you didn't see a Bigfoot because Bigfoots don't do that. And I was afraid that, people might laugh at me. I don't know what you saw.
Yeah, how would they know?
That ain't what we're out here looking for.
Right.
So years later, I'm trying to think of his name, Michael Humphrey. We were at another event, a meeting kind of thing. And he told a story of what he saw, and it was identical.
Okay.
Only the difference was the one he saw was coming straight for him, realized he was there, freaked out for a second, and then turned and scooted off to get away. And once I heard that to me, that was validation. I was like, okay, now somebody else has seen what I saw, and this is part of what people see. So now I'll talk.
And you didn't put it out there.
No, I never put it out there because people would think, oh, he's just trying to come up with a story or something, or no, that's not what we're out here looking for. We're looking for Bigfoot,
Well, and that's interesting. And when we come back from the break real quick, we'll jump right back into this. Jay Folks, Sean Forker, Henry May, James Baker, Vince Nesbitt, Matt Arner, and tonight's guest, J. Michael Long. We'll be right back after this brief message. Well, sort of brief, but We'll see you on the flip side.
News team, assemble!
Ah, yes, it is the Bigfoot Bullhorn exclusively on the Sasquatch Experience. Hope you're all having a wonderful Monday night. As we were chit-chatting about the Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, asked James Baker about desert dry triangles with a hint of apple flavor sprinkled with sugar. It was all part of a breakfast on our depart out of Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Actually, to be technical, Gallipolis, or Gallipolis, or Gallipolis. There's several ways that people pronounce that, but nonetheless, enough of my ramblings. Let's get on with a unusual news story out of Florida. No, it's not a Florida man story, but a Florida authority had killed an alligator that was seen with human remains in its mouth. Say what now? No, that's never happened before. A large alligator was killed by officials after it was seen with human remains in its mouth in the Tampa Bay area of Florida. Jamarcus Bullard said he witnessed the horrific scene in a canal in unincorporated Largo before reporting the sighting to authorities on Friday. When the scene turned gruesome, Bullard hit his record button on his phone. Well, of course he did. The 13-foot, 8.5-inch male alligator was humanely killed. Sure, you violently kill a person, but you get to be humanely killed. And removed from the water with assistance from Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. The sheriff's office had identified the deceased person as 41-year-old Sabrina Peckham. The manner and cause of death is pending an investigation and is ongoing, officials said. My guess is she died by, I don't know, an alligator? It's not yet known whether the alligator killed Peckham, but recent high-profile alligator attacks on humans have left some Floridians on edge. In February, an alligator killed an 85-year-old woman in Fort Pierce while she was trying to save her dog. And then 2 weeks later, a man survived a bite after opening his front door to a gator. Note to self, don't open your front door if there's an alligator there. When we come back, an announcement to be made out of Tennessee.
You're listening to the Sasquatch Experience.
Are you low on Bigfoot wares and apparel? Visit gotknockers.org to fill that void. Got Knockers has everything from soaps, plushies, shirts, hoodies, jewelry, and so much more. Inspired by a sighting of Bigfoot himself, Got Knockers was born. Visit gotknockers.org. Also, head on over to Facebook to Got Knockers community page, where you will find the best and brightest in the world of Sasquatchery. Got Knockers, brought to you by the mysterious tree knocker in the dead of night. gotknockers.org. Okay, well, it's announcement time. This is an up-and-coming event on Saturday, October 14th. If you want to make your travels to Tennessee, to the Tennessee Wildman and CryptidCon. The address for this event is 1020 Jackson Hill Road in Burns, Tennessee. Here's a little bit of the history. Across the volunteer state, a myriad of local and regional names stand for Bigfoot-like creatures seen and encountered just outside local townships and communities. From the Flintville Monster to the White Screamer of White Bluff to Old Green Eyes of Lookout Mountain and the Screaming Jacks of the Cumberland Plateau. Reports of a hairy wildman have remained constant across the ages. This year's special speaker at the Tennessee Wildman and Crypticon is Ronald Moorhead, or well known to us as Ron Moorhead, who is the author of Quantum Bigfoot and producer of the infamous Sierra Sounds Bigfoot recordings. Tickets range anywhere in price from $20 to $500. And I think for $500, you'll probably get to sleep in a tent with Ron Moorhead with an audio recording device of some sort. I don't know. I'm just made that part up. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Bigfoot Bullhorn exclusively on the Sasquatch Experience. And as always, remember, keep your toes in the mud.
Thanks, Vance, for the new segment there and your fantasy role-playing of an evening with Ron Moorhead. That's a great way to close that out.
Yeah, thanks.
Folks, Sasquatch Experience, the Monday night show you've all been waiting for, and we don't know why you do, but we're glad you're here. Of course, Sean Forker, James Baker, Henry May, Matt Arner, Vance Nesbitt, and tonight's guest, J. Michael Long. Jay, before we took a break, you were talking to us about your Bigfoot sightings, plural. We were going back to the Louisiana sighting and that strange crawl. And just briefly, we were talking about you had expectations of what Bigfoot was in the South, and then you see something that's completely different than what you expected.
Exactly. And
that's not unusual for that part of this country, as we come to know, right? And as your research, I'm sure you found out.
Well, yeah, later on, there was another person on one of the forums on Facebook that described the exact same thing. And he's from Texas over here. And so later, as I began to search for more stories about how they walk on all fours, the image I had in my mind was, at that time, Bill Asmussen had drawn a painting of a Sasquatch. And it was standing, and it was like you bent at the waist like this, and the legs were long, and the arms were long, and it was walking like, say, a dog would. In my mind, that's what I thought a Bigfoot on all fours looked like. And this is what was accepted, apparently, is that's what they look like. So when it was that low to the ground, and its knees were bent up to its sides, and its arms doing the push-pull thing, and its legs doing the push thing, I was like, that doesn't fit, and so I was afraid to say anything about it. I thought people would look at me like, you are crazy, and I didn't want to be thought of as crazy, so I didn't say anything about it. I didn't until Michael at another event, Humphrey, I think was his name. I don't know. Anyway, he described the same thing, only he described it coming towards him. It noticed him. Both of them sort of flipped out for a second, and then it darted off. But he described that same motion. And you called it a spider walk. I've never heard that term. So tell me what a spider walk is.
Well, I don't mean to interrupt. That only came to me. That only came to me from Wes Germer and his experience, and he referred to it as a spider walk. And when it did that, it used its fingers to prop its hands off the ground and to propel itself forward. And he referred to it as a spider walk. And from there on in, that's how I coined that phrase as a spider walk. But not that that's actually a thing. But I don't know if you saw it actually use its fingers to help propel, or if it was just the hands itself with the fingers sprayed, and I don't know. It's just kind of crazy and creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
this was creepy enough, but its hands were flat on the ground. I never noticed the fingers
Okay.
come up.
Okay.
If we had gone back, we probably would have gotten very good handprints and the back feet prints because they were flat the whole time. But I didn't say anything.
Matt, was it Sabilla who did the kind of the artist rendition of that?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Which
that's
was
why I
different.
asked. Yeah, and that's why I asked whether it was the hands were in or if they were wide out. One of the renditions that we've seen from and heard from witnesses is the arms will be out wide, and the legs will actually splay out as well, allowing the body then to be close to the ground, and having there'll be coordination between the hands and the feet.
Yeah.
Like you would with like a dog, but yet it's so down to the ground, almost like it's doing a push-up
Yes.
with its upper body, but then the lower body as well is almost in a similar position. And again, you're talking about an animal which may have a different hip structure than we do. So it would be out similar to the top half, like a push-up, and just going back and forth like that, which is pretty darn scary if you ask me.
If you think about it, Matt, think about the muscle structure in order to do that. That's what blows my mind. Wow, that physical.
But even thinking for how Jay is talking about the movement there, I could see something doing that, particularly if it is trying to remain low profile, doesn't want to be seen, especially now it has to cross a road, but if it's going through brush, if it's going through something like that, and I could definitely see something going through like that.
If you can imagine, your elbows it's like this, and your elbows are straight with your body. Okay, now imagine your legs are the same way. All the way up to your side. They're not, splayed out like that. They're up to your side. So your arm and your knee are passing each other as you're doing this. And
almost kind of like its version of a military crawl, in a way.
It was like
you move like a dog, where the paws are kind of like this, and then it's locked the elbows, and then you're
But that front hand, when it pulled all the way back, the arm, it's hard to do it because humans can't do it. Imagine from your elbow to here went all the way over. So the top of your fingers are touching your arm. And then the legs, the back foot, as it pushed away, the top of the foot can touch your shin. You know?
Like if you've ever watched the movie The Ring or The Grudge, some of the old Japanese horrors, that's how they walk to kind of make the creature look more supernatural. So if you wanted like a video reference, go ahead and watch that movie. It'll give you an idea what he's
something like that. It's just creepy. I mean, it's hard to describe, but it's creepy that it could do that, because you just knew that moment. You know, when you see that hand do that, you're like, people can't. Do
I'm leaving the wood. We gone.
Can't do that.
Right. Yeah, I'm done. Wow.
I'm going to try to upload a photo of this for Jay real quick, just so we can show, exactly what it is that we're. Actually, let me just do present.
I've never seen anything like that. That the way it moved, like it would make more sense if it did kind of do this, crawling on the ground but it didn't do that. It was okay. See how that very top. That very top picture. You see how the arms and legs are extended out?
Like a
spider. The legs all the way up next to the body.
Okay.
It did not look like that. It looked like it was trying to be thin. It's like, ooh, like almost like it tried to fit through a hole or something.
Well, if it's got to move through brush, it would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Trying to be low key.
But you see the distance from it in that first drawing, the distance from it to the ground, narrow it down some more, because it might have even dragged its belly, but it was very, very low to the ground.
Yep, I'm out of the woods.
I would never sleep again.
Yeah.
One thing that I'm thinking about, and just from Jay, from your observations, and from what I know too about wildlife, is it could have been actually a feeding behavior as well. Maybe it's doing that. It's collecting grubs. It's collecting, something on the forest floor or something along the swamp floor for food, and maybe it's just so used to being that way, and having the hands and the feet as movable as they are, especially with the feet compared to ours, probably makes it very efficient for basically scavenging off the forest floor.
Yeah, it could be, but I think that my just thoughts of it is we had just come through there on that truck.
Yeah,
the truck's barreling down, and we come around that corner. We're both in the back, so we're looking behind the vehicle.
Okay.
Instead of forward like everybody else. We're on the tailgate, and it just came around that corner. And as we came around that corner, it darted across.
Okay.
The road, like, oh my gosh, I'm getting out of here. There's people here.
Yep.
That was my thought.
Yep.
Henry.
Yeah.
Yes.
You've known Jay a long time. What do you think about these sightings?
This is amazing. I mean, I've heard and read about supposed Sasquatch crawling on all fours, but this is very interesting. Never heard.
Yeah,
it
just the
from Jay.
locomotion of it is strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was strange.
Yeah, I think that's funny. We've known Jay for so long, but we don't recall the particulars of that sighting, and the anatomical sense of this is just mind-boggling. Like, I've not heard of that particular splaying, and I've heard of the spider crawl, just like if we showed you. I wasn't familiar with what Vance was talking about really either. I've just heard it from that photograph that I've showed you there. I've seen that several times. Getting from point A to point B through the terrain they have to cross. It makes sense that they would have some sort of adapted way of moving to go undetected. It's not always going to be this flash across in front of you. I'm sure they found ways to evade. The other thing that I think is interesting, Jay, is that, you thought it could have been a man in a ghillie suit, but how the hell would you validate that? It's not like you could go to the camp and ask, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the other sighting. That's not this one.
Yeah,
But,
different sighting. But
you just showed me that picture, so now my mind is absorbing that and thinking, maybe if it was in that sort of spider thing and a truck goes by and it's like scared, it just compacted in quickly and started,
Yep.
And then maybe once it got in the woods on the other side, it might spread back out again. But this was a move in real close, shoot across the cut through, and then figure out what that truck's doing.
But would it not seem to anybody that if a creature were to do that type of a quote unquote spider crawl, you'd be burning a lot more calories, which you may not have that much to afford. To do that, it seems like it would take a lot of energy to do that. And you might get to a point where you're out of sight and then come back to a bipedal position again. I don't know. That whole thing just creeps me out.
But we're the only species that counts calories. Okay, Bigfoot ain't doing Jenny Craig. In the moment, he's not sitting there thinking, "Oh, I wonder if I have to eat another."
Yeah, maybe not, but it still has hunger tendencies. It doesn't not.
So put yourself in the position: die, or survive another 10 minutes.
Right. When
Yeah.
fear
You know,
kicks
something
in, you don't
sees
know what
me.
you do.
I
Right,
guess.
absolutely.
Yeah. No,
Well, this
you're
motion,
right. That's a good point.
I wonder if this motion is something that they only do like for a short burst, and then they stand back up again, or maybe they drop down, burst, and stand back up. Of course,
Like
now
Tom
I'm seeing the
Cruise.
spider thing, and now I got my mind around that. It's like, well, maybe they're like this, and then they come, or they stand up later. I've heard people saying they were on all fours and then stood up and walked away.
Well, let me tell you, if this is the common form of locomotion for Sasquatch, I'm moving to the pro-kill category very quick, okay? Because I'm done.
I'm empty in that clip.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt.
I have always
Yeah, right?
said, if you want to prove the existence of Sasquatch, go get a Sasquatch. Whether you have to shoot one or whether you can capture one alive.
Yeah, I don't want one.
Whatever,
I'm sorry if you were a dude in a suit.
I'm sorry. So, Jay, you've been down the road now a while. You've had your own sightings. You've talked to a bunch of people. You've produced documentaries. What's your take? We try not to beat the Patterson-Gimlin film to death here because it's been talked about ad nauseum for as long as the video's been around. But to you, what's your take on Bigfoot? Is it real? I mean, what you've seen, but what else aside from your sighting says, hey, this is a legitimate creature?
Well, my sighting, the things that I've seen, to me, I know there's something out there. I just don't know what it is. My personal idea on Bigfoot is, some people say, well, it's an offshoot of humans, or it's an offshoot of apes. And I don't think that it's either. I think it's its own thing. I don't think that it came off the evolutionary tree from humans, or it came off the evolutionary tree as a branch off of apes. It's not an orangutan. It's not a Bigfoot. It's not a gorilla. It's not a chimpanzee or a bonobo. And I don't think that it's human either. I think it is its own thing. You have the human branch, you have the ape branch, and it's somewhere in between. And it is its own thing. It has its own evolutionary patterns or whatever. Gigantopithecus blackie might be an offshoot of it from years and years ago. But I don't think that it's human. I don't think that it's ape. I think it is its own thing.
Do you think it's just human nature to try to assign it to something closer to us?
Yes.
That we want it to be that, so that's what we point it to?
We want to try to explain it, or we want it to be like us. So it's a gentle giant. It lives in the woods and it wants to be left alone. Or we're like, it's an aggressive creature or something like that, or it's supernatural, or it's alien. The thing is that if it were human, we humans have a lot of baggage, especially emotional.
Right? Yeah.
If it is human, where are the Sasquatch wars? Where's the need to explore? Why hasn't one just walked out of the woods and walked in the middle of town and went, hey, I want to see what all this is, and been photographed, seen, or even walk up to somebody? Where's the anger? Where is the lust, the greed, the vanity, the attachment? These are all human emotions. They're all negative emotions. People tend to subscribe the good emotions, the good things. They're little gentle giants. They want to be left alone. They live in the woods and they're good little furry creatures. No, there's probably some negative to that too. But so I mean, if it's human, it would have the same emotions we have, and we don't see any sign of that. If it's primate, it would be far more vicious, because animals, hey, they'll rip you apart. A gorilla can take you apart, an orangutan can too, and a big enough chimpanzee will beat you to death. We don't see that. It's not in their behavior. So they're not human, and they're not typical animal, in my opinion.
I don't know if I have any more to sum that up. That was pretty spot on.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
you don't think of it in those terms, 'cause it's the frustrating thing with me that it's been there for a while, is that we have this incessant need as a people to anthropomorphize things and make them like us. And there's so much of this that says this isn't human. And, when you were saying, where's the lust? I had to point up this book I got in the mail from a listener called The Sensual Sasquatch, which is not in the same category as Come for Bigfoot, folks. It is a legitimate book that documents Sasquatch, coupling. And it's been actually a fascinating read. So if you get a chance, pick it up. I'm going to have the writer on the show here at some point, The Sensual Sasquatch. It is worth the read. I thought it would be a little blushing letters to Penthouse-esque. It's not. It's actually a pretty decent read. So just because Jay happened to say, where's the lust? It's in that book. They do get it on quite a bit. But
where is the lust?
Jay, it's we're almost out of time again, and I feel like we just scratched the surface of you and what we've done. But somebody that's been in this field as long as the rest of us, so probably 20 years or so, you've seen a lot. You've been through a lot. We've been through the Bluff Creek massacres. We've been through the Bigfoot hoaxes, right? And we definitely have to have you on for a part 2 to talk about some of those things. Because I think now more than ever, folks have to understand those controversies happen for a reason, and we can't go back to them.
Yeah, yep. The dead Bigfoot in the freezer is my favorite.
Right.
For that.
But Jay, what I've come to understand is people entering this community in the last couple of years just don't respect the history, and they don't go back and read it, and they don't go back and look at these mistakes and follies, so we don't go through them again. And that's why it's nice to have folks like you and Henry and around so we can talk about those things. Even though people that listen to this, we might get a new listener who said, I never heard that before, but there's a reason. We don't want you to hear about it, but we want you to hear about it. We want to give you the story. So we'd like to get you back at some point, Jay, to talk about that. But go ahead and plug some things you got out there now. I know your documentaries are still out there on Tubi.
Well, I was also a witness to the Pascagoula UFO where Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker were abducted. And I have a DVD out now that tells the story from all of us who saw something that night, as well as Calvin. And he recently passed away, so we will not get any more information from him, unfortunately. But there's a new book out, and I'm in it. And there's my film that you can see, and a new documentary that I'm also a part of that's being produced in the UK will be coming out later on this year or the beginning of next year. So there's lots of information on that also.
Cool.
As far as Bigfoot, I haven't done one in a long time, but Sasquatch Hunters is out there. And it's one I did a while back. And you might enjoy seeing that one as well.
I did. You do put out some great documentaries, man.
Something I was going to just throw in here. Last week in one of the local forums here in Texas, somebody reported a Bigfoot sighting. Because they had the thing where the police had written down that the individual said that he thought he saw Bigfoot. And it was reported and it got out there and it was on one of these services, like Facebook or whatever. And I just thought, well, that's interesting. We just had one last week here in Texas.
Yeah. Texas is a hotspot for Bigfoot activity.
Yeah, right.
The Lone Star State has its own frequency of sightings. Yeah. So, Jay, thanks so much for coming on with us. We're out of time. Where can folks find out more about you?
You can go to my Facebook group. Just look up JAY Michael. I'm J Michael _official on Instagram. Those are the two best places because I posted pretty much anything that's going on. I posted about this. So if you want to know anything about me. Also, my Instagram, I have a link tree on it in my profile. You can click on that, and there is a whole litany of things you can see, watch, movies, stuff like that you can go that I made.
Very cool.
Tons of stuff, tons of things. Can't mention all of them here.
Well, we'll get you on again so we can talk more about them.
Love to talk more.
Yep.
Excellent. Guys, that hour went by quick. In fact, I think it goes by too quick sometimes.
How
it does.
Again, we're making the migration here to a more permanent home for Anomalous Entertainment, Sasquatch Experience Studio. I've been working on that as much as I can between my real job and my real life. So we'll have an actual studio space to bring you some more great productions. I've got a couple more irons in the fire. Guys, some great stuff's coming along. We just ask you to be patient and truck along with us. Matt and I have been out in the woods. Matt's been really getting out there. We hope to bring you some good stuff. And I know the guys have been working on their projects. So, again, stay tuned. We appreciate your patience. We appreciate you, the listener, because without you, we'd just be some guys walking around in the woods looking for Bigfoot with no reason to continue doing this. So, guys, thank you. Henry, give them those beautiful closing words.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
Keep on squatching, folks.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review wherever this podcast is consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook or email us squatchexperience@gmail.com. Keep on squatching.